All right, everybody. Well, I just got back from seeing Steven Spielberg's latest film, Bridge of Spies. I've been looking forward to this for a while, really ever since I, heard that it was being made. As cinephiles, we always kind of follow certain directors. We check them out on even if it's just checking out the Wikipedia pages and just you always want to find out about what this director is doing. Like Spielberg's one of those for me. Martin Scorsese's one of those. Wes Anderson's another one of those. And there's just tons of them like that that I've just always followed. And I always seek out information. So I've always known that Bridge of Spies was coming out, and I always knew it was going to be, directed by Steven Spielberg at the time, when I figured that out. Um, and so I've always looked forward to this ever since I first heard about it. I don't remember when I first heard about it, but I remember it was in the negotiating stages of Spielberg being attached to direct. So I've really followed this since day one. And so, yes, today we're going to be talking about Bridge of Spies, starring Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Mark Chairman and the Coen brothers. And I actually did not know until just a little while before going into this film that it was actually co-written by the Coen brothers as well. And I was actually kind of like, whoa, that's kind of interesting. It's a Coen brother, basically they make up 2/3 of the entire writing staff for this film. So I thought that was really cool because I was like, okay, well, I could expect some great dialogue in this film, maybe a little bit of humor as well. And so going into this, Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg, I kind of going into it, I knew it was going to be good. I'm always kind of blown away. I just feel like they're both two talents. I going into a Tom Hanks, Steven Spielberg film, it's going to be good. And really, going into a Spielberg film when you're a Spielberg fan like I am, you kind of know it's going to be good. Of course, he has directed his films that really aren't as well received as others, but I've pretty much consistently loved every one of his films, even some of the ones that people don't really like. Always, I really don't have a problem with that film. 1941, I really don't have a problem with that film. They're flawed, but I enjoy them for what they are. So, going into this film, I knew it was going to be good. Now, I'm already kind of lifting my expectations up right there. And so when I went into the theater, I sat down and I was like, okay, let me really try to, look at this in a different light. I'm going to go ahead and kind of get it out of my mindset that this is a Spielberg film. And so, yeah, I'm sitting there in the dark, got my drink next to me. The movie starts. And right off the bat, I'm actually really loving it off the bat because the film itself is very classically filmed. There's a lot of scenes that are just the camera's just kind of gliding, and the setup is, kind of like a 50s or 60s kind of classic filmmaking feel. There's not any overly crazy movements with the camera, all that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of, just straight up setup shots. Probably a medium take kind of shot, and some people just going back and forth out of a room, that kind of thing. But then there's that one shot that Spielberg's been doing in a lot of his films, especially the second half of his career, and that's where when a person is kind of talking, the camera stays on the two guys that are talking, and then when one person starts telling a story, and it's going to be kind of maybe like a long dialogue, monologue kind of thing, the camera slowly zooms in and then it slowly zooms out. So right off the bat, I just really loved how it was classically filmed. Another thing I really liked about this film is the music, or should I say the lack of music. Now, going into this, I was kind of like, oh man, it's Spielberg's first film in a long time that wasn't actually scored by John Williams. I think the last film that he did not score by Steven Spielberg was actually The Color Purple. I thought that was because for this film, I thought he was just doing Star Wars instead. Apparently, it was for health problems. So, yeah, he did not return. And really, I'm a huge John Williams fan, but I didn't really miss that part because what the film did was it was all about natural noises. You're going through Brooklyn, you're going through different parts of the city, and you're hearing all, people talking in the background. You're hearing music through somebody's window. It's very, very unneeded to have music. In fact, the first half of the film does not, unless I forgot, there really is no score at all or even any musical cues at all. it's all like, natural sound. And Thomas Newman is really good about doing, and he's who did the music. He's really good about doing, um, you know, mu- music when it's needed. He doesn't really have to score an entire film. That's what I liked about his score for Skyfall. I haven't seen the latest James Bond film yet, so I'm not even sure if he scores it. But that's one thing I liked about Skyfall. There's a lot of the musical cues, but then the music pulls back when you really don't need it to actually be there. And so that's what I really like. So it was classically filmed, and the score was right where it needed to be. It wasn't overbearing, none of that. Now to the screenplay. Keep in mind, I'm still trying to go with the fact that I'm still in the mindset of it not being a Spielberg film to kind of bring down expectations. So let's talk about the screenplay. The screenplay was amazing. It was a heavily dialogue-driven film, which not a lot of. Sorry, I got my camera bouncing on something. I should have got my tripod, but it's all good. Of course, like I said before, I knew it was a Coen Brothers, like basically a Coen Brothers script going into the film, so I knew it was going to be, dialogue heavy probably and be kind of witty at the same time. I just think it was maybe a benefit having them come on board because the dialogue, being a heavily dialogue driven film, it really needed natural sounding dialogue. Like the conversations and stuff are so perfect because it deals with a lot of negotiating between people and trying to release people. So it's very dialogue heavy and has enough of the wit in there to keep it funny at the same time. And so I thought the script was actually one of the biggest points of the film. I thought the cinematography was amazing. You definitely have that thing that Spielberg likes doing in a lot of his films, basically since Saving Private Ryan, I guess you could say, to where, there's the light coming, the exposure of like light coming into the windows is very overpowering, but not in a bad way. I really like how he does that. Now there are some points, I guess I could say, in Lincoln. Maybe it was kind of overused. I love Lincoln. I mean, I love that film. I thought it was one of my favorites of the year when it came out. But there was a couple scenes where I was like, okay, this is maybe a little bit too much. And maybe it's the signature of, I always forget his last name, but it's Janusz Kaminski, who does the cinematography for most of Spielberg's films, and he has done it for a long time. And, he's really good at kind of pulling out a little bit of the colors. In fact, there's scenes that take place in the United States, like I say, if you're in Brooklyn and stuff like that, the colors are really bright and vivid. But then when you go over to Berlin, in the middle of the Cold War, the colors get muted a little bit, and it kind of pulls it out. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like Minority Report, where the colors are almost the film negative is actually looked like it's kind of bleached, but it does pull out a little bit of the color to kind of give it that grittiness, the cold feeling, I guess you could say. So, right off the bat, in this video, I've already talked about all those kind of things. The editing was great. The editing was great. The acting was top of the line. And I guess I could just go ahead and say that it was one of Spielberg's best films that I've seen in a long time. He blew me away because he was able to orchestrate all these things into one brilliant film about a lawyer, basically negotiating between, the United States and Soviet Union, and he's kind of acting as like a independent, voice to this negotiation because they don't really want, it's kind of like an unofficial thing between governments, and so, it was a needed thing. You have this kind of this basic plot, like, it's not basic, but everything was able to come together perfectly. And I mean, I think it's definitely one of the best films of the year. I haven't really seen as many as I wanted to this year, but I could definitely say this is definitely one of my favorite films of the year. Definitely buying it the first day it comes out. And my expectations were blown. Like I had high expectations, but because I went into it, I was able to actually, when I went into it not thinking it was a Spielberg film, I was able to look at everything else and kind of go, okay, hype aside, it is actually a very extraordinary film, and I'm very, very happy I saw it in the cinema. Um, you know, one thing I was really shocked about after watching it is I went back and looked at how much it cost. It cost $40 million to make, which is pretty low compared to all the other films that are out there. Especially, you would think a Spielberg film would probably cost more than that. He is very good at being able to make this movie look like it's so expensive when it really, I mean, $40 million is still a lot of money, but I'm just saying, like, it was definitely a lower budget than some of his other films, and I think that's definitely going to benefit this. Not everybody is into Cold War thrillers. Not everybody is into dialogue-driven films. So you kind of have from a business standpoint, like, oh man, Spielberg made this expensive film. Hopefully he can make his money back. Well, technically he's already kind of made his money back with this because it was $40 million, and so far it's made 58.6 million, and it's only been out a few weeks, and it's very this is one of those word of mouth kind of films, and it's heavily acclaimed. So he did the smart thing. I mean, he could, and it doesn't, and it's pretty much all practical effects. I don't really see any CGI involved with the film, so maybe that's why it was able to come down in terms of cost too. But overall, I just thought this movie was amazing. Definitely had some heartfelt moments in it, like you would expect from a Spielberg film, but it was just, I had a big grin on my face at the end of the, not big, a big smile on my face at the end of the film because I was just like, this is what film's about. And I'm very happy I went and saw it, and I'm really happy that it was as good as it was. It could have been kind of a Spielberg dud. It could have been something that's all art and not enough substance, or you get what I'm trying to say, like an empty masterpiece, I guess you could say, where you can't really relate to it, but it was very human. And that's what I really liked. You had all these complex spy plots and all this complex spy war elements to it, but it was really based in human stories of the human part of all people and what's right and wrong and doing the right thing. And Tom Hanks just definitely just blows it out of the park in this film with making us really sympathize with the character and really go along with the adventure. So I highly recommend this film. Really try to make this as spoiler free as possible, and I guess you could say I give the film an A, definitely. If F D C B A, definitely give it an A. Really loved it. One of the best films of the year. Check it out, see it when it comes out, buy it, but try to go see it in theaters. Get a little bit more money thrown towards it. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.